I'm back. It's Melody Medley with Oyez Real Estate. This video, we're gonna dissect these short sale documents, how to fill them out, what is required, the right way to fill them out, and then how to send them. So get out a pen and a piece of paper because you're about to learn. So the first thing you're gonna need is a listing agreement. This is an agreement between the seller and the agent that they're going to sell their house through a short sale. Depending on where you live, listing agreements can be anywhere from 1 to 10 pages. I believe here in Texas, ours is 9 pages. But it has to show that we're selling the property as a short sale. There's special verbiage that has to go in this listing agreement, and I'll give you that here in a second. One of the main things you'll also need is called a letter of authorization. For short, I'm going to say LOA. So LOAs are going to be sent to the mortgage lien holders, the foreclosure attorneys, any lien holders for that matter, whether it be an HOA, a city lien, it could be a bankruptcy attorney, but you need to have letters of authorizations for all parties involved in this transaction. And in this letter of authorization, you need to make sure that you're including the seller's name, the property address, the loan number, the last 4 numbers of their social security, and then the names of who are authorized to speak on behalf of the seller to their bank. We have examples coming up. Another document that will be required is what's called an RMA, Request for Mortgage Assistance. This shows that the seller is upside down on their mortgage and on their expenses, that they cannot afford to make their mortgage payments, and it will outline why and how by detailing their expenses. You need a 4506T, which is a tax transcript for the bank to pull the taxes, the seller's taxes. You need a hardship letter. The hardship letter is going to state why they are in this position, why they cannot afford their mortgage. You're also going to need financials, and these need to be updated. And I'm talking within the last 2 to 3 months. It can't be from 6 months ago. It has to be current. Bank statements have to include all the pages, and that's even the last page that's intentionally left blank. You need to include that. If the bank statement says there's 6 pages, make sure that you're turning in 1 of 6. If you don't turn in 1 of 6, it's going to be rejected, and you're going to have to go back out to the homeowner and trust that they're going to send it to you. So make sure that you're getting all pages of the bank statements. Any form of income, so whether that be pay stubs, social security award letters, maybe disability work letters, whatever the case may be. Oh, if you work for yourself, you're going to need a profit and loss statement, also known as a P&L. Any form of income, you're going to have to show the bank proof of your income, and they typically want the last 2 months. You're also going to have to give tax returns, but here's a little nugget for you guys. The 4506T allows the banks to pull the tax returns. So I actually don't ask any of my sellers for the tax returns because I'm going to have them sign this 4506T. That way they're not stressing because they have to get their bank statements, their pay stub, and now their tax returns. It just makes it a lot easier for all parties involved. The 4506T is basically a shortcut to where you do not have to get the full tax returns. But that is required, 4506T. And then if the seller is not working, if they do not have any income or if they do not have any bank statements, then you'll just need to have them write a letter stating that they do not have any of the above. They do not maintain a current bank statement and they do not have any income whatsoever. The bank has to have one of the two. They either have to have proof of income or a letter stating that they don't have income. Same with the bank statements. They have to have a bank statement, but if they don't, they have to have a letter stating that they don't have a bank statement. You also need the MLS listing. Your agent can provide that for you. And then you're going to need a utility bill. The utility bill confirms that they are living in the property. This helps with getting the seller the relocation money. So these are the forms kind of in a nutshell. Let's dig into it and see what exactly the forms look like. So the first one was the listing agreement. The one that I have here for Texas is 9 pages. But this is the verbiage that must be in the listing agreement per the lender. If you don't have this in there, they're going to reject your listing agreement and make you put it in there. So if you want to read it, it states, this is a short sale. The seller may cancel this agreement prior to the end date of the listing period without advance notice to the broker and without payment of compensation or any other consideration if the property is conveyed to the mortgage insurer or the mortgage holder. This is the verbiage that the bank has to have in there. They won't agree to accept your listing agreement without this. And then they also have to have the sale completion is subject to the approval by the mortgagee. So that's meaning it's a short sale. We have to have approval by the bank before the short sale can be successful. So that is just one part of the listing agreement that you have to have. As far as what else is in your listing agreement, that is between you, your broker, and your seller. But this is what the lenders will look for in the listing agreement coming from you. This is the letter of authorization, the LOA. I highlighted the parts that are important because anytime that you're submitting anything to the lender, it can be no more than 30 days old. And it has to be updated. If you're 31 days, they're not going to accept it, they're going to reject it. So you want to make sure first and foremost that the dates on here are no more than 30 days old. You want to say who it's to, the lender, in this case it's Chase. And then you want to give the authorized party. So here in the middle it says that Eartha Wang, Melody Medley, and Chris Jones from Oyez Real Estate are allowed to speak to Chase on the seller's behalf. So any one of these three people can call and talk to Chase about the mortgage. In the middle, that's where you're going to put the seller's name. Remember, it has to match the name on the mortgage statement. It has to be identical. If there's a middle initial with a period at the end, make sure you put it. If there's a middle initial with no period, don't put it. It has to match verbatim. You need to have your account number, the property address, the phone number, and the last four of the seller's social security number. Down at the bottom, they need to sign it. And all these documents that we're talking about need to be wet signed. Most banks do not accept electronic signatures. Some will, some won't. It's just best to get wet signatures because it's better to go in knowing that they're going to accept this versus not knowing and having to go back out and meet the seller and get all the paperwork signed again. You're basically saving time by a sure thing by getting wet signatures. And then again, the seller needs to date it no more than 30 days old. So this is a letter of authorization. It's pretty generic. You guys can make your own. If you go to the bank's website, I'm sure they have their own authorization, but your own authorization will work. So the next big one is called the RMA. It's the request for mortgage assistance. We're showing the bank that the seller's expenses are way too much. They cannot afford their mortgage, and this is the reason why. So this is a Chase form, and this is the most updated Chase form that they have. The parts that are highlighted in yellow are going to be the most important parts. Really, everything that you fill out, I do not leave anything blank. So if it's asking for a spouse's name or a co-borrower's name and there's not one, put NA, mark through it. You don't want there to be any questions. I always have the impression that banks are stupid. They're dumb. They don't understand. So I have to make sure it is black and white for them to understand. I don't want me not filling out a form affecting my short sale, it either being shut down or it's dragging on because I have to keep resubmitting documents until I get it right. So for there to be no questions, I mark through things that are not applicable. So NA, I like to put NA. You can mark through it, whatever you want to do, but just make sure that you're filling out every single box so there's no questions asked. So in this case, you're going to be putting your loan number at the top, filling out the information, and I do this with the homeowner while I'm at their house. We go over this together. That way there's no questions that they have, or if I have questions, I can ask them, but it helps me fill this out. And you're just gonna fill out every section. The second page of this RMA goes over the expenses. So again, this is showing the bank that the sellers cannot afford their mortgage, and here is why. For this seller, she was getting $1,020 every month. But her expenses ended up being far over that. Her expenses ended up being about $1,250, but that did not include the mortgage payments. So she was probably looking at about $2,500 for her expenses, but she was only bringing in $1,000. This right here shows the bank that she cannot afford her mortgage payments. And again, if there's anything that they're asking and it's not applicable, put 0 or mark through it. You want to make sure that there's no questions. The only other thing that I can say that you should probably do that's very important too is when it asks if they want to sell the property, keep the property, or they're undecided, always mark sell. They're doing a short sell. They're selling their property. They cannot afford it, therefore they do not want to keep it. They can't keep it. They have to sell it. And since, again, I think banks can be dumb, when I check sell, I literally handwrite short sale next to it. That way there's no question and no doubt in the bank's mind that they want to short sell their house. Again, it's just going to ask you more questions throughout the RMA. Down at the bottom of this one, they need to wet sign it and date it, no more than 30 days old. You're going to start seeing a pattern with this, but hopefully this will help you. Here's the 4506T. So this is the tax transcripts that you will submit to the bank, to Chase in this instance, and Chase can pull the seller's tax transcripts so you don't have to provide them, but you do need to fill out this information. Chase has a specific form, their own 4506T. They put their address on this 4506T. So this is something that when you're calling the bank in the beginning to get the short sale documents, you want to ask if they have specific 4506Ts or specific LOAs, whatever the case may be for this lender. You want to make sure that you're getting their specific forms, because if you don't turn this in, guess what? It's going to be rejected and you're going to have to resubmit it again. Typically, banks only want the last 2 years of tax returns. So right now it would be 2017 and 2016. If people haven't completed 2017, then they need to put 2015 and 2016. So again, last 2 years. There are blanks to put 4 years. I know that they only need 2, so I'm only going to put the last 2 years. And then again, the seller must wet sign. It can be no more than 30 days old. And then real quick, the phone number has to be included on this 4506T. It's on the bottom right-hand page of this, and I see a lot of agents miss this part and it gets kicked back because they did not include the phone number on here. So make sure you're putting the phone number on the 4506T. Again, every box has to be filled out, whether it's with information or it's a slash, an NA, whatever the case may be. It will help you fill out the forms correctly and make it complete so it does not get rejected. Here's an example of a hardship letter. In the hardship letter, the seller is explaining to their bank why they're missing their payments. It always needs to have either the month or the exact date that they started the hardship, their hardship started. We typically just say do a month and a year, but it has to have a time frame on when their financial hardship began. So this is an example of one. It says, I became unemployed in August. There's no year, but they should have put a year. I became unemployed in August, and my fiance lost his job as well. We were unable to afford the house, so we decided to sell. We used all of our savings to fix up the house, and we had a buyer ready to go, but we found out that there was a second lien on the house. This made it impossible to come up with closing costs and make the sale. We decided to try the short sale and move away. We are now homeless. So this is a detailed hardship letter, which is fine. I'm all for it. The more information, the better. But a typical hardship letter really just needs to have the time, the month, and the year that they fell behind, why they fell behind, and that they want to do a short sale. So really those 3 things. This is a very good letter because it explains that they were trying to sell it. They knew that they needed to sell. They tried to sell it, but since there was a second lien on the house, it made the sales price even more, and a buyer was unwilling to pay for it. Hence, it's a short sale. They were upside down. They owed too much on the property. This hardship letter does need to be signed and dated by the seller. There's a little bit of controversy on the hardship letter, whether it needs to be handwritten or if they could type it up. I always say just do it handwritten. I've seen it both ways. I've submitted one that was typed up and the bank said, nope, we need it handwritten. So again, just to be safe, handwrite everything. Make sure there's wet signatures on everything. And then this is my MLS for this property. We'll be using this property throughout the short sale process, hopefully so you guys can make a connection. It's easier for you to understand. The things that I like to put in my MLS is, one, I need to make sure that it's active. I'm showing the bank that it is listed, since that is a requirement, what the sales price is. And then I don't know about y'all's MLS, but we can put like a property description on what the condition of the house is. So I put in mine for this property that the pool needs repair or it needs to be filled in. It needs a new fence, it needs new paint, it needs a new roof, drywall damage, there's possible foundation issues, there's leaks in the utility room from an unknown source. I'm doing this because when the appraiser goes out to the property, they're gonna look to see if your property's listed, and I want the appraiser to see right up front what he's getting himself into. I want him to call me and ask me questions about these repairs that are needed. And we'll talk a little bit more about talking to the appraisers and the BPOs in some other videos moving forward. But this is pretty much the bread and butter of the MLS. Just they want to see that it's active by an actual agent, that there's a sales price, and then I myself just like to put in the property description on what the current condition is. So that's pretty much your short sale paperwork from the lenders. They're going to want the RMA, the 4506T, the hardship letter, and then your financials. So if you want to look here at my example, this is a cover sheet for when I'm faxing in my short sale documents. I attention it to the short sale department. That's where it's going. And then I list out what I am attaching. I put the loan number in there at least twice. Again, I think banks are stupid. I don't want there to be any reason for them to question where these papers should go or where they should be filed and for what loan. So I'm putting the loan number as my subject line, and then I'm also putting the loan number in again in my, my cover sheet, so they know where this is going. I always put my information in case they need to get a hold of me. They know how to do that. So that is kind of the short sale package in a nutshell. So once you've compiled your short sale paperwork, you've double checked it, you've read it twice, you've made sure that every box is filled out, whether it's an NA, a slash, a zero, whatever the case may be, it's signed and dated, you're good to go. You will need to actually list the property. So when you're listing a property, you want to start off and pick your comps. An agent, you can pick your own comps. If you're an investor, you want to use Propelio to pick comps, and comps are basically what the other houses in the neighborhood are selling for. You want to take in consideration the condition of your house. So when you're meeting with the seller, you should be taking pictures and just writing down notes about what is wrong with the house. The seller should also be telling you what is wrong with the house. And one of the disclosures is called a seller's disclosure, and I make sure the seller fills that out, to the best of their ability, because this will help you when you have to pick the price for the property. When you're listing the property, pick a good value, whatever you think is realistic. You don't want to list it too high, but you don't want to list it too low. You just want to list it at a reasonable price. You want to take advantage of problem situations. So for this house, I knew that there was foundation issues, plumbing issues, that the roof needed to be repaired. So the other houses were selling for higher. I subtracted what I thought was fair to fix those repairs, and that's what I will list it for. So take in consideration what your condition is like at your property, compare it, and then you pick your price accordingly. So now you've completed all your short sale paperwork. You've done all your RMAs, your 4506T, you got all that good stuff, and you have your MLS listing. Now you have to send all that to the bank because you're actually going to initiate the short sale now. You need to send in your letters of authorizations to the bank, and keep in mind that there might be different fax numbers for the letters of authorizations as opposed to where you send your short sale paperwork. So that call, the pre-appointment, when you're calling the bank to find out what documents are needed, you need to be asking them, well, where do I send my LOAs? Where do I send my short sale paperwork? And ask them specifically those questions. Because if you just say, where do I send my short sale paperwork? They're going to give you the generic fax number, and then your LOA will never be uploaded because it was supposed to go to a different fax number. So remember, ask specifically where to send the letters of authorization. So day one, you're going to send your authorizations to everybody. The lenders, the first lien, the second lien. If there's an HOA, you're going to send it to them. Pretty much everybody that you can think of, they need authorization because you are going to have to speak with everybody in this transaction. So when you initiate a short sale, again, you should be calling and finding out where to send it. A lot of them will want you to fax it. Every now and then you can email it, just depending on the lender, or you may have to initiate it through Equator. Equator is an online portal between the agent or the person processing and the bank itself. I love Equator because everything is recorded. It's right there. They prompt you with a task. They prompt you to say, hey, upload your LOA, upload your listing agreement. There's no guessing with Equator. It's all right there. I love it, but only certain banks do Equator. Right now, it's only NationStar, who actually just got bought out by Mr. Cooper, and then Bank of America. Ocwen will actually put your loan onto Equator, but you have to submit all your short sale documents first. It's kind of backwards, but that's the way that they do it. So you need to initiate the short sale. When you're sending in all your packages, all your forms, you need to make sure that you're putting the loan number on the top right of every page. Whether you handwrite it, you can do it on the computer, that's okay. This does not have to be wet, but you do need to make sure that you're putting the loan number on every page. That way, if something goes missing, whoever finds it can put it with the correct paperwork and put it back to your loan. Again, you want to double check everything. And the reason why I emphasize this so much is that if you mess up, you send it in, it takes the bank about 48 hours to get your stuff, review it, and then say, yes, this is a valid document, you can move forward. So if you're submitting your short sale paperwork on Monday and you do it incorrectly, you're not going to find out till Wednesday that it was wrong. So then you have to redo it all and then send it back in. So maybe by Friday or the following Monday, you can actually start talking to them and move the short sale. You wasted a week. So again, it's very, very important that you get your short sale documents right the first time. And then the second most important thing that you're going to do on day one when you're initiating the short sale is get your title started. You want to reach out to a title company that you trust and somebody that's done short sales before, a title company that is familiar with this process, and you're going to ask them to start your title search because you're going to have to know all the liens, all the encumbrances, all the back taxes, any HOA dues. This is when you find out if there's any liens that you did not know about. Sometimes sellers will say, no, I don't have a second lien, Ma. And then you get the title commitment back and you see, oh my gosh, there's actually a second lien. You go back to the seller and they say, oh, I stopped paying them a long time ago and they stopped sending me letters. Doesn't mean it doesn't go away. So the title search is very, very important, and you want to do that right away because you're going to have to start negotiating any liens on that commitment as soon as possible. Just kind of an overflow of how this is all going to look through the process. You're going to meet the seller. That was the previous video. You're going to get them signed up. Then you're going to submit your LOAs. You're going to send off for your title work. And then you're going to request for payoffs for all the lien holders. Then once you get into day 1 through 45, it's called the financial review, where the bank is going over the documents that you sent in, they're confirming all that good stuff. You're going to want to make sure that you have your title back within this 45 days and that you're clearing it. The next 45 to 60 days is what I call the listing period, where the value is returned. You're going to figure out when that value expires and what net that the bank is going to have to meet from that value. 60 to 90 days, we're looking at the offer review, we're monitoring the showing service, we're negotiating offers, and we're even submitting offers for approval. Then 90 to 121 days is your closing time, where you receive your approval letter, you schedule for closing, and everybody's happy in the end. So this is a broad overview, just kind of, again, what you're getting yourself into once you've submitted all your paperwork. I refer back to this quite often. I would say put this aside and save it for the next few videos that we go through. That way you can basically compare where we're at and where we have to go. I like to use this because I say I'm a glorified babysitter. I babysit the bank, so I have to push the banks to the next step. So if I know that we're in the financial review part and I need to get my value ordered, I'm pushing the bank. Have you ordered the value? Have you done this? Have you done that? So this is kind of an outline on the steps that have to go, so it will help you in processing your short sale. And then just the last part of this video is called the financial review part. So day 1, we've submitted the short sale package. So from now until about 30 to 45 days, this is what's going to be happening on the bank side and what you need to be following up with. You need to call the bank after you submit your short sale package. I would say every other day, if not every day if you have the time, because you need to confirm that they have the short sale package, that they're putting the loan into short sale. And you need to say those words specifically. Is this loan active in short sale review? Because if you just say, is this loan active, or the seller wants to do a short sale, the banks don't necessarily understand that you've sent in paperwork to be reviewed for a short sale. So be very specific when you're talking to them. You need to follow up with them because they could be asking for explanations. If you send in pay stubs and there's no year-to-date on it, they may ask you for you to bring that in. I see a lot of explanations needed for bank statements, that people will have cash deposits on their bank statements and the bank wants to know, well, what is that from? How often is this money going to be deposited? Because again, we're trying to show the bank that they cannot afford their mortgage payments because their expenses are too much. But if the seller's got a bunch of cash deposits, well, where's this money coming from? Typically, the cash deposits are from them selling items online through Craigslist. You know, maybe their mother gave them money to pay for their utility bill, but the banks will want explanations. And the only way that you're going to know that they need the explanation is because you're calling and finding out. Now, the banks do send letters to the homeowners to say, hey, we're missing these documents or we need these explanations, but do not rely on the seller. This is your job. You need to make sure that you're calling the bank to find out what exactly is needed. The short sale can be shut down. If you're not returning these documents in time, they're going to say, okay, no short sale, we're done. And then you have to start all over and pray that they don't put a foreclosure date in the meantime. So it's very important that you're calling. Again, you're the babysitter. You have to follow up. You have to make sure that you're doing everything in your power to get this short sale moving forward for that homeowner. The more that you do it, the more it'll become comfortable and just second nature to you, but you're the babysitter. You call and do your due diligence for the seller. That wraps it up for today. I look forward to seeing you again very soon.